Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us on another episode of On the Air with Tim and Ken. Ken, great to see you.
Tim, great to be back for another episode.
It's been a little while, so we got a lot to do. We got to catch up. And before we get started on the real stuff, the real quick disclaimer, everybody, don't rely on anything we tell you or suggest to you. Just live your life. Don't rely on us. But Ken, you had some more important messages for the folks.
Yeah, we want to thank Happy Face Films for all the production work and for trying to make sure we stay within our allotted time. And I'd also like to thank Image Builders of Clayton, North Carolina, for our designs and our hats. And looking forward to another great episode.
And don't forget, the viewers, if you click that subscribe button, the like button, we appreciate it. If you want to click the dislike button, don't even waste your time. But tune in anyway. So today, what we're going to talk about, we've got a few things, Ken. We're going to go over the NBA trade. We're going to go into the NFL draft by the numbers. That was a big thing on TV this week or past week. And we're going to, if we have time permitting, we're going to do a little bit of a preview on the Kentucky Derby. But before we get into the NBA trade and how that played out, we were contacted by a viewer, Bill from Naples, Florida. I think Bill has roots in the Boston area. And he reached out to us, which was nice. And he said, hey, guys, you might want to talk about this a little bit. He reminded me that the Boston Bruins traded their captain a few weeks ago, Brad Marchand. He was kind of injured at the time, and they traded him to Florida for a conditional pick. And the Boston fans were quite upset. They only got a second-round conditional pick. So the Boston fans were quite upset about that. And fast forward now to today, turns out that the Florida Panthers are doing very well in the playoffs. And if the Panthers get through the second round and Brad Marchand plays 50% of the games, which apparently he's playing all the games, the Bruins get a first-round pick. So you don't hear a lot about that. It's just interesting how all these things have tentacles all the way. So thank you, Bill. We appreciate it. Enjoy Naples, Florida, and keep that sun kind of coming up our way. But more importantly, I want to get into the trade, Ken. I turned on the TV the other night. I knew the NBA playoffs had begun, well underway, and I'm trying to find LA or Dallas, see these superstars play, see how the trade worked out. I must not have a good cable program or a cable subscription because I couldn't find either team. So help me out with the NBA draft, the big draft, and how that's worked out.
Well, we started off our podcast career talking about the Luka trade from the Dallas Mavericks to the LA Lakers. And one of the reasons that was such a big deal at the time, and still is Luka's considered one of the bright young players of the league. And in the NBA, the stars players control their destiny. So, if they want to get traded, they'll say, trade me, and here's where I'll go. And this was one of the few instances where the team just made the trade without really any impact from the star player. He goes to LA. We talked a lot about the financial ramifications to Luka himself. It was going to cost him in future contracts, roughly $100 million. And there was a lot of discussion at the time, based on who you listen to. Did it help Dallas now and LA in the future? Dallas players got hurt. They kind of dropped. The Lakers became the number 3 seed. And, we're not going to bore, but both teams are currently out of the playoffs very early.
Amazing. Both teams are out. And you got now, LeBron James out there too.
And you got LeBron James, who, right, the face of the league, at 40 years old, 22 years in the league, still probably one of the top 5 to 10 players in the league. And, he made a comment, if I don't get to the finals, I'm not, it hasn't been a good season, and they go out in the first round. And it's now going to you should have listened. I mean, I listened yesterday to a bunch of these, NBA analysts, and they're all climbing the walls with, whose fault it is, what's going to happen. So it's going to be an interesting summer because LeBron's contract has the ability to opt out of his contract with the Lakers, which they think he will, and then re-sign with the Lakers.
Where would he go? You mentioned early on, this league is driven by controlled by the players, and a guy like him, his superstar power. where would a guy like him want to go if he wants out of LA?
I mean, he's accomplished everything in the league that he could have accomplished, right? He's won 4 NBA titles with 3 different teams. I think, is he convinced that LA is going to be able to rebuild in this summer and contend better next year? Or does he opt out and move on? And I think from a storyline, the place that would make really interesting would be the New York Knicks. I'm speculating they're not going to win this year, but they haven't won the NBA title in 50 years. There is something about Knick basketball at the Garden, at Madison Square Garden. And if LeBron wanted to, is he on Mount Rushmore of NBA? Is he on the edge? I think he could put himself in there for 100%, opt out, come to New York. They've got a lot of talent on the team. And is he the missing piece that would, cement him in NBA history forever? And I kind of liken it to Theo Epstein, right? He wins in Boston, ends that drought. He wins with the Chicago Cubs and ends that drought, right? If LeBron's the guy to get it done and win in New York, it would be really, just incredible. And the money he would make, he would own the city, even if he only played 1 year. But they came,
Sure. Well, it's fascinating to see how this trade worked out, didn't work out, is still ongoing, how it affects LeBron James, how it's going to affect the league. But
also Luka's going to have a choice to make too. I mean, he's now under the microscope in LA. Everything he does is under the microscope. And is he going to like that? I mean, I'm sure he was under the microscope in Dallas, but I think the media in LA is a little different.
Sure.
And, he has the opportunity to not re-sign with the Lakers. And, California's got a 12% income tax.
Yeah.
Does he take that money and go to a city that, he's going to be less under the microscope and, still be considered one of the top players in the league. So I think, both have decisions to make this summer. It's going to be really, really interesting to see. I think most people think, most of the experts I listened to yesterday are saying LeBron's going to resign, Luka's going to resign. But is that the case? What does LeBron have left to do in LA?
And the money will be part of it. Big part of it. So, yeah.
Is it? I mean, how much? He's a billionaire probably already, LeBron, with, and does he want one more run at an NBA title, or does he want another $50 million? And
obviously, he wants them both, right? He wants them both.
He wants them both.
He wants them both. Well, thanks for the updates. Let's keep an eye on that. That's going to play out, like you said, over the summer. See who signs and where and when and how that rolls out. But that's an interesting story. So moving on. You think the NFL's in the fall and the winter, but it's year round now. So this past week, big fan based NFL draft, 3-day extravaganza in Green Bay.
Yep.
I watched it. The fans showed up. It was a big to do. Let's get through the NFL draft by the numbers. You're the numbers guy. Lay some of this out. You got some interesting stuff. You previewed it a little bit for me before we get on the call. Lay some of that out for me.
So there was 13.6 million that watched the first round on Thursday night. That is the second highest since 2020, which was the COVID draft. Everybody was inside anyway. They had 205,000 people show up for round one in Green Bay. Detroit was the tops at 275. Since they've gone to this Thursday night, opening round.
Yeah.
I think the lowest they've done is 7 million, up from 5 million on a Saturday start. And, 13 and a half, well over 10 million most years. So from the attendance point, it's a no-brainer. And then, we were kind of laughing. They made a big deal about introducing the NFL schedule. Right? That's the next big event.
That's coming up in May, folks.
Again, they're trying to make it for TV. I mean, if you're an NFL fan and you already know that the opponents have been decided. The home and away has been decided. It's just going to be, what week they're going to play where. But they're going to do that, I think, May 14th live on the NFL Network, and it's great, right? They're marketing this, and people are gonna tune in, and they'll make a big deal about the Thanksgiving games and the Christmas Day games, right? Now you may not be able to see them because depending which streaming network they're on, you may or may not have that, right? We've talked about that, so some may be on network TV, which you don't get. Some may be on, the streaming services you may not get.
So in a few weeks, we're going to hear back from the NFL when you get to just the announcement of the schedule. You're going to hear about it. If you turn on ESPN or anything, you're going to hear about it again. So they're really smart.
And you're going to have people going through, oh, that's a win, right? Like you always look at it, right?
Yeah.
Schedule comes out. They don't even have the team set. Schedule comes out. That's a win. That's a loss. Oh, we're going to go 10-7, But I got fascinated by the numbers, some of the numbers of the drafts, and I love listening to these draft experts. They're so intense, and they didn't draft this guy, they're gonna die. So I looked at the top 10 picks for the 2000 to 2020 drafts, 21 years, because everybody else is still under their rookie contract later on.
Explain that. The rookie contract is 5 years for people that don't know. Years 1 through 4. You have to, if you sign with the team that drafted you, you get years 1 through 4. The 5th year is an option year, and if you don't sign, you have to sit out till the draft till the next year, I believe.
Till next year.
Yeah. So just to lay that out.
The top 10 picks are supposed to be the no-brainers, right? Their average career length is 9 years.
For the top
10 picks. Top 10.
Top 10. Cream of the cream.
The average career length with your team, the team that drafted you, was only 6 of those 9 years. So most of the players play for at least another team. You're going to play an average of 1.5 to 2 other teams in your career if you're a top 10 pick.
And that's over 9 years.
And that's over a 9-year career, right? So but if you got drafted at 22, by 31, your career's over.
Yeah.
Okay. On the average. So there's 210 players in this sample. 35 of the 210 have won a Super Bowl. That's it. Of the top 10 players, only 35 of them have been on a team that won a Super Bowl. Wow. And they won a total of 45 Super Bowls. You had Eli Manning win multiple Super Bowls, right? You had Patrick Mahomes win multiple Super Bowls. It's 50-50 that you win a Super Bowl with a team that drafts you, or you go to another team and win a Super Bowl there.
So what do you do with the draft? I mean, it's we all get excited. We all see brighter days when our team makes some pick or whatever, and they trade draft.
Here's my favorite stat: 22 guys didn't play more than 5 years. So 1 out of 10 didn't even get out of their rookie contract.
Wow!
Before they're out of the league.
Wow!
So I wouldn't rush out to buy those jerseys of your rookies.
Yeah.
Because it's really fascinating if you look at some. But the last pick in the draft, here's some more. Last stat we'll give you. The last pick in the draft is referred to as the Mr. Irrelevant pick. Since 2011, the last pick in the draft has not only played in the league, but played in the league an average of 3 years. So you're the 255th guy picked, and they're all making it, and they're playing at least 3 years. Now, Brock Purdy, who's the San Francisco 49ers starting quarterback, was the last pick, and he is now looking for a contract reported around $50 million a year.
Wow.
The last pick in this draft.
$50 million per year.
$50 million per year as a starting quarterback in the NFL. That is rumored to be the neighborhood that his rookie contract is coming up, and that's what his extension number is rumored to be, because he's a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Make that check payable to Mr. Irrelevant. Unbelievable! Wow. I was watching the draft, and they did a nice production with it. I didn't watch all 3 days. I'm not that deep into it, but they did mention something that I thought was nice. It was the 50th year anniversary of the draft when Walter Payton, the great, now deceased Walter Payton, was drafted. I think he was the fourth overall pick, and I'm old enough to remember Walton Payton. A lot of folks aren't, but he was a great running back, folks, and he played a lot of years for the Chicago Bears, and he had incredible yardage. And I think I read he averaged over like four and a half, almost 4.5 yards per carry. Extremely durable, did a lot of things in the field, but that's just part of the story with him. He's really recognized today, not just because he was a great the stats line up, but he was such a gentleman. And when if you watched him or saw a clip of him, he just wasn't. Obviously, the man was strong and powerful and quick and all those things, but he almost made running back like an art. He was just so almost artistic about it, the way he would find holes. And back in those days, folks, you remember, if you're my age or whatever, but it was a running game. It was you run on first down, second down, a lot of times on third down. It wasn't like today's aerial game. This was just a pile up at the line of scrimmage, and the running backs were a key component of it. And to have that career back then, and he's everyone just had high acclaims. And I think Lawrence Taylor said, I hit the crap out of him one time so hard, and the guy had nothing bad to say to me. He's just a gentleman the whole time. If we're both on the ground, he helped me get up. That he was just that type of a person. He died too young. He had a long career, but it was really nice of the NFL to remember that and bring that up. I just thought that was a nice touch. For someone, especially for someone like me that remembers him, and for those folks who don't, at least now you know something about a great football player, a great man. So I just wanted to bring that up, and all the fanfare and all the numbers and all the dollars and all that. And I think his highest salary was like $475,000 a year or something like that. So he earned all of that in tenfold, but he was one heck of a guy and a hell of a football player. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, that's a great story, and NFL judges do a really good job promoting things like that and remembering their players. And
yeah. So remember, later in May, schedule's going to come out. I don't think you have to sit around the TV, but if you want to, if it's raining or something, you want to do that. And then, like Ken said, look at your team, who they're going to win. You're gonna know by that night. You're
gonna pick the winners and losers, and start making your bets. And
one thing before we move on is I was looking at some numbers, Ken, on the dollars. In the first round pick, the overall, the top round picks, they make their money with the signing bonus. Their play money is not guaranteed. They get hurt, whatever. So that signing bonus is critical. And it was something like, the first round pick, the top few picks, they might get $45 to $50 million with that. And half of that or more of that might be the signing bonus. But as you drop down in the same round, the first round, towards the end of the first round, that money goes from like 40 to 50 million down to about 12 million. So when you're watching this and these gentlemen are drafted, every time that it's not their name, it's dollars and so forth. So it's big money either way. Matt, it makes a big difference.
Yep.
So.
And I want to say one more thing on the Luka Doncic thing. There's a really interesting article on Yahoo Sports by a guy by the name of Dan Devine, who really dives into all the different financial scenarios that Luka has. And whether he takes the extension now, next year, couple of years. So if you're really into the dollars and cents and how these salaries are calculated, and it's a really interesting article. So I would go to Yahoo Sports. And I think it was posted today. I read it. I read it today, but I think it was posted today. And it was just a really interesting article that explains the options that he has, and he even gives his thoughts of which ones he thinks he will take. And
nice. And I want to hear from Giants fans, New York Giants fans. They're passionate like a lot of fans, but they may be even more passionate. I don't know, but they're certainly vocal. They're not shy. They tend not to be shy. They follow their football. They had the number 3 pick overall. I want to hear from them. They always have an opinion on how they feel they did on their pick, despite what Ken said about all the numbers on first round picks, a top 10 pick. I want to hear what they're thinking about that, and are they going to the Super Bowl as a result of that now, or are they unhappy? Let's hear from the Giants fans on that, because they tend to be passionate and they're not shrinking violence. So let's hear from a Giants fan on
they're
that.
not.
So great. That. I think that wraps up the NFL draft by the numbers for now. We may have some follow up on that and see if anything, if someone doesn't sign for some reason or there's more trades and things. But uh, I don't think
we have a little horse race tomorrow, right?
Yeah, that's right. Tomorrow's a big day. Tomorrow is first Saturday in May, and I got my racing form here, ready for the Kentucky Derby. I know for most people, it's the one day a year that they pay attention to horse racing, and as well they should. It's a great day. It's a big, fun, festive day. You can wager a few bucks, not wager a few bucks. Ladies get their big hat. People tend to drink a little bit, have a lot of fun. That's primarily what it's all about. But I wanted to give a little bit of background about the horse, the jockey, the trainer. Some of that gets lost a little bit unless you're watching that TV show for 5 hours tomorrow, which most people won't be doing. But all the horses. Here you go, Ken. All the thoroughbreds tomorrow. They're all 3-year-olds. Nothing unique there. And why is that? Well, you got to be 3-year-olds to race in the Derby. Now, what's fascinating, and use this at your next trivia night. Every horse celebrates their birthday, or at least their owners celebrate the horse's birthday on January 1st of every year, regardless of when the horse was born. So every horse gets a year older on January 1st.
Make sure you're keeping easy, huh?
That's exactly what it was. You got horse people. They're all over the place. Horse people are horse people. And they just said, you know what? January 1st. We don't care when you're born. But that plays into the breeding and all that. There's a science to that. I'm not going to get into horse breeding and all that, but there is a science to that. And when the horse is born for training and the right age to be running these big races. But so you have 100,000 horses annually brought into the world, thoroughbreds. 100,000 thoroughbreds. Think about that. So 100,000 of them are eligible to race in the Derby. Tomorrow there might be 20 starters. I think one of them might be scratched. So you might have a big field of 20. So think about the odds of getting to the Derby. You got a better shot as a fan paying a fortune to be there than you get trying to get a horse in there. So you got 100,000 horses technically eligible, and 20 of them make it to the starting gate. So that in and of itself is a fascinating thing. But I really wanted to
get these horses aren't small horses. I think people think that these are the horses that they go on pony rides on, right? And you've seen some of these horses up close.
Yeah.
Explain, how big and strong and dangerous these horses are.
Good point. These horses are very young. They're full of total energy. You wouldn't really, as a layperson, you just wouldn't be around one, like you said, at the petting zoo, or you're putting your son or daughter on one for a little pony ride or something like that. These horses, they want to run. They're big. They weigh about 1,200 pounds. And when they get cooking out there, it doesn't take them long to get going. They're going to be going around that track, 1.1 miles at 40 miles an hour. And that jockey is going to be sitting on not much more than a little sliver of paper, the saddle. There's not a lot to it. 40 miles an hour, tearing around that thing. And tomorrow when you have 20 horses going, it's kind of like a chariot race. That's why safety is the number one thing. All of that is critical. And what these jockeys do out there is crazy in my world. They're phenomenal athletes. These jockeys and these horses and what they do at 40 miles an hour to coordinate all that. So they'll go tearing around there. And I want to tie that in a little bit to who still has the record on the Derbies, Secretariat, 1973. Secretariat won that race, won the Triple Crown. Set a record for the track at each leg of the Triple Crown. That record still holds true today. So you're not a horse nut. A lot of people aren't. That's just some information to put it in perspective. But also the jockey for Secretariat rode in all three of those races. I think his name was Ron Turcotte. He's an older gentleman, lives in Canada. Great career with Secretariat. But unfortunately, what happened to Ron about 5 years after the Derby, he got severely injured in another race, became paraplegic. But that didn't end that didn't end him. It ended his riding career. But he took that to another level, raised a lot of money, got awareness for these jockeys, raised a lot of money, probably made the sport a lot safer. And you don't see all that today because of things that happened before. And I think Ron is retired up in Canada in his 80s, and I hope he's doing well. But that was the story with him. So it's a fascinating story. He made the best of it. heck of a riding career. And he was probably in his mid-30s or so, I think, when that accident happened. And he rode Secretariat when he was about 30 years old. So amazing Secretariat, amazing jockey. And my trainer's story for tomorrow is real quick. Bob Baffert, he was suspended. He's back tomorrow. I think he's got one horse, actually the number one horse, post position 1, riding in tomorrow. I think his other horse, I read tonight, I think it might have been scratched. So he'll be back for good or for bad. He's back. He's the guy with the white hair, and I'll see how they profile him, because he got into a little bit of heat over using steroids and things like that. There was a lot going on that I don't have time for tonight. I'm not going to get into wagering, not a betting channel, but we're kind of running out of time. But if for any interest, number 17 has never won the Derby. Is tomorrow the day? That will be Sandman. And for you folks that want to bet and have some fun, I think the favorite has been winning about 10 to 15% of the time. Yeah, about 15%. No, I'm sorry, about 35% of the time. But that's the same across all horse racing. So it's no different for the Derby, whether or not the favorite wins or not. So it's kind of what I have for the Derby. I think we're out of time, unless you had something else.
I think we're out of time. It's been a full episode. We've given you a lot of information. We appreciate everybody that turns in to watch and gives us a few minutes of their time. We've really enjoyed doing this.
Yeah.
And we'll be back soon.
Thanks, Ken. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. And thanks, Bill. Thanks for getting back to us on that trade. Good night, everyone. Take care.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Ken.